Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another Overwatch League fan thoughts and analysis video. Today, we will be going over Stage 2, Week 4 of Season 2. The Dallas Fuel Homestand weekend is this weekend. But before we jump into looking at Week 4, let's take a look back at Week 3 and how I did. Uh, Overall record was 13-3, bringing our overall record to 79-39, and our big pick record this week was 4 for 4, bringing our overall big pick record up to 18-12. But let's take a look at all of the games. Thursday, perfect 4 for 4. New York over Fusion, Shock over Defiant, Gladiators over Mayhem, Titans over Fuel. Those were all games that, if you ask me, it was basically one team that was far better than the other team that they were playing against. I believe the only, I think Fusion took a map off New York, Mayhem took a map off Gladiators, Shock and Titans didn't lose a map. So very one-sided affairs there. Not much to say really. I think all the teams look good. The bigger story, of course, comes Friday, where I went 3-1. Correctly picked the Fusion over the Outlaws, correctly picked the Valiant over the Justice, correctly picked the Spark over the Charge. But the Atlanta Reign, first team to defeat the New York Excelsior in the regular season for Season 2. Atlanta outplayed New York. I don't think New York played their best, and I think Atlanta capitalized on it. But it was really just kind of a mixed effort, I think. Both sides, really. Atlanta playing well. New York didn't play well. It's something New York does very often. They just kind of take days off sometimes. And the question, I mean, it raises a couple questions for me. The first one being, is NYXL a team that is going to struggle if they play games on back-to-back days? Is that the issue? Was it just an issue of they didn't play their best game? There's a lot of questions, of course, and we haven't seen them play since then. Their next game is against the Atlanta Reign in Week 5, so we'll have to wait and see what happens in that matchup for New York if they can get the revenge against the Reign for that one. But who knows? We'll have to wait and see what it's like for that next matchup. But the Valiant Justice game was probably the best game of that day. Fusion Outlaws is very one-sided. Spark Charge was competitive from what I did see. That was actually probably the best game of the day. But Valiant Justice, Justice look a lot better, obviously. Now they have Sleepy, who they just acquired from the San Francisco Shock, who I think really helps that team out, makes the team a lot better. So I think the Justice and Valiant both look a lot better. I think the Valiant have looked a lot better since they've started running KSF and Custa back in the lineup. I just think in general the team looks solid. I think they're improving a lot. So good for them. They got to the 2 wins in 3 games. 2 wins in 3 games, pretty good for them. So I think it'll still be difficult for them to hit a stride and get better and get to potentially being a top 12, playoff contender. But they're playing well when it matters. So if they can kind of get hot at the right time, they could maybe see themselves in the season playoffs. But we'll see what happens. But next, move on to Saturday, where we had the London Spitfire take on and take down the Boston Uprising. That was my big pick game for Saturday. The Shanghai Dragons beat the Florida Mayhem. Finally, sorry about that. Finally beating the Florida Mayhem after their 4 meetings last season that all went the direction of the Florida Mayhem. So Dynasty got a win over the Dallas Fuel in a very, very interesting game. And the LA Gladiators got a win over the Chengdu Hunters. That was a one-sided affair. The Dynasty over the Fuel was a one-sided affair. Spitfire Uprising was pretty one-sided. Dragons Mayhem was not one-sided, but the Shanghai Dragons were dominant for the most part. But the Mayhem had a couple good moments. I really want to focus on the Dynasty versus Fuel game. That may have been one of the best games of Overwatch I've ever watched. That Eichenwald map was absolutely insane. I mean, I yelled when Toby did some of his crazy stuff. I also noticed some of the teams I forgot to cross out when they lost, but it's whatever. It's whatever. Um, but yeah, there's some. I mean, it was a crazy match. It was absolutely one of the best matches I've seen. It was wild. It was really 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 fun to watch that game. The Dynasty are a team that are really weird right now because they don't run that roster with Fissure and Fleta very often anymore. And I don't know if it's just kind of a temporary thing, if they're trying both rosters, they're trying to figure out what works best for the team. If, who knows? I thought that they were going to try to run that kind of like secondary roster against Vancouver the first time they played. So when they played them the second time, it would be like they had some tricks up their sleeves. But now I have no idea what the Dynasty are up to. But even with their quote secondary roster, they still got a victory over a Dallas Fuel team that had been looking pretty good in the past couple of weeks. So now Dallas has two tough losses back to back to the Titans and to the Dynasty, and the Dynasty are looking like a very very solid team right now. I really do think the Dynasty are a top 5, top 6 team in that range, and I'm really 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 liking what we've seen from them so far. The other games though on Saturday were pretty straightforward. Moving on to Sunday, the Vancouver Titans against Boston Uprising game. It was closer than I think most people thought. Boston Uprising probably should have taken a map or two. Uh, I think they should have probably won Paris, but it didn't end up going their way. Shanghai Dragons and Houston Outlaws, pretty one-sided there. Shock, very one-sided game against the Spark. But the Guangzhou Charge beating the Atlanta Reign in a game that ended up being like 3 hours long and had a record for the most objectives or points scored. I didn't watch that game. I was watching Game of Thrones, but I came back and I was like, watch points on like the game. What? And then I remember watching watch point and it was like, yeah, 3 hour game. I was like, wow, that's crazy. But the Charge finally getting a win. They've been struggling, so good for them. Good to see teams that are doing well, but obviously it shows the Reign are not that good. So New York losing to Reign, much bigger deal now that the Reign then lost to the Charge. But pretty good week for me in terms of picking, so I'll take that. But let's move on from week 3 to take a look at week 4, the Dallas Fuel Homestand. We start on Saturday with the Paris Eternal taking on the London Spitfire. I am taking the London Spitfire. I've been very impressed with the Spitfire recently. I think they look like a also probably arguably top 6 team. I think you could, where you put them with Seoul, if you want to put Seoul at 5 and London at 6, you could probably put London at 5, Seoul at 6. You could find a place to put them, but I think right now they are one of the top teams in the league. They look really good right now. Who knows? It could change. That's something that London has excelled at in the past, but I think they look good. Paris is not looking great, in my opinion. They're looking subpar, so I like London. So I'm taking them in this game. From a big pick game on Saturday, we have the Hangzhou Spark taking on the Chengdu Hunters. I like the Spark in this game. I think the Spark are, in general, a team that is better, and I think they've been playing a lot better recently. They played a very good series against the Vancouver Titans. Even though it was semi one-sided, but the Spark had a couple good maps. They played well. I really liked what we saw from the Spark. So right now, I think they are a very very solid team. So that's my big pick game for Saturday. Moving on, we have the Houston Outlaws taking on the Seoul Dynasty. To me, that's an easy win for Seoul. I don't really think Seoul struggles there. And the final game for Saturday is Dallas against the LA Valiant, which I'm going to take Dallas. 1, because they're playing in Dallas, but 2, because the LA Valiant still I'm not super convinced by. But I'll say this right here, right now, I wouldn't be surprised if the Valiant won that game. I think the Valiant right now are playing a lot better. The Fuel, they looked really good at the start of Stage 2, in Stage 2, Week 2. They were 2-0, and then now they're 0-2 and -8 in uh, week 3. So Dallas is a very hard team to kind of read. The Valiant looking better, but still have somewhere to improve. But if this is a win that the Valiant can get, they're putting themselves in good position to potentially make stage playoffs. They're putting themselves in good position just to get wins and climb up the standings that they desperately need to do. They could jump the Houston Outlaws in terms of overall standings. So there's a lot of things that are really big for the Valiant if they can get a win here in the Dallas homestand weekend. But a win against the Fuel would definitely be a good first step for them there. But we move on to Sunday now, where we have the Hangzhou Spark taking on the Paris Eternal. I'm taking the Spark for the same reasons why I took them against the Hunters. I think the Spark are looking a lot better right now than the Eternal are. I think the Spark have been playing well recently. I think with the integration of Crystal into the lineup, the DPS position has looked somewhat better. I think Gouchouet, of course, now has gotten more used to the communication. Gouchouet plays very well, I think. I think the Spark are a solid team right now. That very well could be a one of those teams that starts to really rise as we get later into the season. Next, I have the Chengdu Hunters and London Spitfire game, where I'm taking the London Spitfire because, like I said, I think they look pretty good right now. And I feel like not much else to really explain there. I'm taking the Dynasty over the Valiant. That one's pretty self-explanatory. Dynasty are playing pretty well right now. Valiant, not so much. Finally, for my big pick game for Sunday, I'm taking the Dallas Fuel over the Houston Outlaws in the battle for Texas, the match to close out the Dallas home stand weekend. I think the Fuel right now look better than the Outlaws. Outlaws have had some moments. They've had some good, but they definitely have some problems that I think they need to address. Whether that be a full roster change, whether that be a some other level of major change, if it's organizational, whatever. There's some changes that need to be made there. I don't even know what I just said. There are some changes that need to be made there if they want to continue to compete at the high level that we saw early stage 1 of last season, but not so much in this season. But we'll see how everything goes for that game. That's a game I'm excited for. I'm hoping it's a good one, but we'll have to wait and see. But with my picks for week 4 out of the way, let's take a look at the league standings. And as you can see, even though New York has now lost a game, they are still sitting comfortably atop the Atlantic Division at 12-1 plus 31, with the next best team being the Philadelphia Fusion at 8-5 plus 6, and the London Spitfire at 7-4 plus 6. Then you got a bit of a differential gap between the Spitfire and the Defiant and the Uprising. If we go over to the Pacific, the Titans, of course, sitting at the top at 12-0. They are plus 34, but the Shock, 2 games behind them, 9-3 plus 25. Gladiators are 9-4 plus 13. Those are kind of the 2 teams right now that I think have the best chance at beating Vancouver. New York still has a chance, I think, but some question marks surrounding New York right now. Dragons making their way up the standings now, sitting right below the Dynasty. The Fuel, of course, sitting there right below the Gladiators. But Dynasty, I think, will pass the Fuel at some point in the next couple of weeks, just based on what we've been seeing. Finally, let's move on from the overall league standings and take a look at the top 10 stage standings, where we can see a couple teams have clinched their spot in the stage playoffs. The LA Gladiators are going to the stage playoffs. They missed out in stage 1. They are going to be, though, playing for the stage 2 title. And the New York Excelsior continue their streak. 6 straight stage playoffs made for the New York Excelsior, the longest possible streak, and the only team to do so. I don't believe any other team has clinched yet, based on what I have seen on the league, but those are the 2 teams that have clinched. But we can see the Gladiators sitting at the number 1 spot, that's 6-0 plus 12. The Shock are sitting at number 2 at 5-0 plus 20. But, of course, assuming they don't lose the game, they will be sitting above the Gladiators by the end of the stage. The Titans are below the Shock at 5-0 plus 16. Then you have New York at 5-1 plus 15. The London Spitfire at 4-0 plus 10. The Shanghai Dragons at 3-2 plus 2. The Chengdu Hunters at 2-2 plus 2. And the Philadelphia Fusion at 3-3 plus 1. Rounding out your top 8 for the stage with the Paris Eternal at 2-2 plus 1. And the LA Valiant at 2-2 minus 2. Just on the outside. So the Valiant definitely have a chance to crack the top 10 there in the stage standings. It'll be difficult, of course. They'll need a lot of things to go their way. But it's not impossible. It's not out of the picture for the Valiant to potentially be a stage playoff team. But the Shanghai Dragons there fighting for their first ever stage playoff, as well as the Chengdu Hunters, two teams that have never appeared in a stage playoff. Both of those teams are fighting for a spot in this stage's stage playoffs. But those are all of my picks. Those are all of my thoughts on the Stage 2 Week 4 Dallas Homestand weekend. And that's where we're going to get out of here. So let me know down below your own picks, how you feel about the weekend, how you feel the Dallas crowd will be, but I'm going to get out of here. So thank you for watching. If you enjoyed, consider liking and subscribing as it helps out a bunch. But until next time, I am going to get out of here. So thanks again for watching, and goodbye.